Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, reacting to the Toronto Raptors 98-90 victory against the Miami Heat. Josh, this was a necessary W for the Toronto Raptors. They dropped a couple really close games to Miami and the Brooklyn Nets in their last couple, and they came out. There was a lull there like it has been in each of the games this season, but they were able to bounce back and really stomp the Miami Heat in that fourth quarter, winning it 27-14. We had a lot of amazing performances. Precious Achiuwa, got to get the propaganda out early. Last time you were on the pod, Josh, you were out here roasting Precious, but he came back, silenced the doubters in this game here tonight, and lots of solid performances. Even if it's not the most efficient game for the Raptors, what'd you see in this one?
They hung their hat on defense, man. It's what they do to get through the offensive struggles. And I mean, Miami's a physical team, but talk about our group bringing it and matching it all night. And I want to say right off the bat, I don't want to hear anything about the officiating. I know it was tight, but hey, man, if two teams are going to go at it that physical, it's going to be a game packed full of fouls. But we hung in there. We got the W, and man, I'm excited, and I got nothing but great things to say about Precious.
Yeah, well, let's start with Precious Achiuwa, because tonight he had 10 points, 22 rebounds, a couple of assists, and some drives. I know he wasn't that involved on offense. They were running weird zones to keep the ball out of our bigs' hands, forcing the guards to take a lot of shots. And Fred and Gary definitely took a lot of shots tonight. But when Precious had those straight line drives, there was a couple moments, and we'll save the specifics for the segments, where he was looking like a LeBron-esque slasher. I'm not saying he's at that caliber of player, but he has that size. I mean, the handle is tight. He's able to just have players bounce off him like they're little kids trying to guard a grown man, driving the lane, dunking everything, that quick vertical he has. But really the rebounding is what kept the Raptors defense just solid, because the key to stopping a team, right, you need to be able to finish that possession. You get that stop, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr., Fred VanVleet, they stay in front of these guys like Jimmy Butler drive and Gabe Vincent making some drives, Kyle Lowry, right? But you got to box out and finish it. That was a problem for the Raptors last season. Precious Achiuwa sealing the deal against Bam Adebayo, and it was huge. And we have a big super chat, speaking of Precious, coming in from Sawir Dell, saying the propaganda is true. It is facts. Got to keep playing that Precious propaganda all night in this one. But the way he's attacking the rim, bodying people out, just having that knack for the basketball, it's exactly what the Raptors need. And I'm agreeing with Sawir. I apologize if I'm butchering the name. Dell, the propaganda is true. It's propaganda time. This man is elite here, Josh.
He really is. And I mean, kind of poetic against his ex-team. They trade him away to get Kyle Lowry, who we're not going to talk down on at all. I know Miami had to make a business decision, but talk about Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster doing their thing and picking up a guy that was really the start of this positionless mold. And when I say the start of it, they've brought in a bunch of different dudes, but he was one of those guys that really showed they were making a commitment to playing this way. And 22 rebounds, a block, 10 points on some drives that you noticed were LeBron-esque. That's pretty ambitious, man, but I'm loving it. Well, let's keep gassing him up. You know what Marcel always says? He thinks that Precious Achiuwa is kind of comparable to a Ben Wallace. Again, we are pumping this man's tires to the moon. But Marcel's been high on him, you've been high on him, and I'm pushing the propaganda with you guys right now. I love the performance, and it was a physical game, and you need players like Precious who can get off their toes quickly, block shots, get back up and get rebounds, flush the bucket. Like, it was unreal. So very happy with everyone's performance tonight, but particularly him, and it's got to feel good doing this in Miami.
Yeah. Well, Josh, before we swing it into any other players and stuff, obviously we're going to be spamming this propaganda segment tonight. But in this little graphic we have, at the top you see it there, better than Bam, it says. Now, Bam Adebayo's on the opposing team tonight. Obviously is a guy that is an all-star. I believe he's made all-star teams, but definitely one of the upper echelon big men in the NBA. Was he better than Bam tonight? And what do you see from the future of Precious? His ceiling above Bam or not? We got Marcel coming in agreeing with the Ben Wallace take with the super chat. Are we crazy for spewing this propaganda over the past year? Because tonight, he looked better than Bam, in my opinion.
Well, you know what? Bam's so much farther along. It's hard to say, but Bam was
Just
pretty
tonight,
raw.
just tonight, just tonight.
Tonight, sure. Tonight, yes. But the one thing I do want to say is that Bam did not happen overnight. This guy's been gradually
Mhm.
improving. People have tried to put his name in the MIP talks forever. Like he was a raw product that Miami really polished. And I think you can say that Precious Achiuwa is on his way to potentially one day being an all-star. But I love what you said about him the other night. He's either like your third best player or
Yeah,
your ninth best player.
yeah.
Once he figures out that consistency, I think he's rolling, man. What a pickup for the Raptors. And tonight, getting the revenge game. Unreal.
Well, we have a super chat coming in from Sawyer. Sawyer. I got to get it right because they're coming in with a fire super chat again saying, Bam couldn't stop Precious. We appreciate the super chat, Sawyer. Get that name right going forward. My bad on that. But, Bam Adebayo was known to be a defender, and he's had a rough start to this season. Hasn't been that efficient. I picked him up on a couple fantasy teams, and he's just breaking my heart on that front. I'm happy that in the 2 games against the Raptors, he's struggling, so there's a positive there. But certainly, he plays solid defense. He's anchoring those zones that Eric Spoelstra especially is running there tonight, making it tough on the Raptors scoring efficiently. But we did see, especially obviously Precious had a couple drives, but Pascal Siakam, even though he didn't have the most efficient shooting night, 7 of 22, 23 points for Pascal, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks in a game where it felt like nobody on either team could hit anything. Pascal Siakam was, got the shots when they were really needed down the stretch, had a couple moments where the Miami Heat were going on runs, and just like you're expecting from your number one option, your top guy, we saw Kyle Lowry do this for us so many years during his prime with the Toronto Raptors. When you need a timely bucket, Pascal Siakam was able to deliver for us today, whether it be getting inside that zone and working a smaller matchup and, veering to the other side that Bam is on, right? Working those spin moves, and obviously at the end of this one, hitting a nice little clutch fadeaway. That was great to see. Before I throw it over to Josh, we have a super chat coming in from Marcel saying, one does not walk to Mordor without Precious. Bringing up some Lord of the Rings references that are going straight over my head. But Josh, how are you feeling about Pascal on this one?
I liked it. I mean, someone in the chat earlier said that Pascal had a bad game and he still ends up with 23, 9, and 6 and a W. So, I mean, in the defense too, let's shout that out quickly. 2 steals, 2 blocks. He had a massive one against Tyler Hero there, right at the apex as it was going up, swats it away. I love this guy's energy. It's consistent now. And even when it's an inefficient night, I like that the shot selection isn't changing. He's remaining aggressive. He's trying to get fouled, and his confidence just isn't wavering anymore. He's starting to believe in himself. And if he wants to be the top dog, if he wants to be top 5 in the league, self-proclaimed, I mean, you got to be that way. You got to have that edge and that outlook. And I see it developing before our very eyes. So really loved what he did tonight. Again, not the most beautiful performance, not the most finesse, but again, there's going to be nights like that, especially against a tough Miami team, and he stuck to the game plan and got it done.
Yeah, without a doubt. And to bring it back, because everyone's hyped up on the Precious train, we got PK coming in with the super chat saying that Miami fans want Precious back. You brought up how we made the trade for Kyle Lowry to acquire Precious Achiuwa. He's formerly on the Miami Heat. And that might be something that I had in the back of my brain to look on Miami Heat Reddit for a video tomorrow. But there might be a bit of buyer's remorse because obviously Kyle Lowry is more of a win now player. Even though he's inconsistent in his older age and all that sort of stuff, the highs of Kyle Lowry, what he can bring to your team, probably surpasses Precious Achiuwa at this point in their careers. But the future of Precious Achiuwa, that's looking scary. That's looking scary for this Toronto Raptors team. He fits exactly what we need. Someone that can get some rebounds, can finish in the lane, can space the floor. As you said, if he just gets a little bit more consistent this season, the sky is the absolute limit for Precious Achiuwa. But we already did a deep dive into there on Pascal Siakam. And we've been bringing up in recent podcasts, Josh. I don't have the animation done up for it yet, but Pascal Siakam said this offseason he wants to be a top 5 player. Is he looking like a top 5 player here tonight?
It wasn't pretty, but when you can have a bad game and still put up that line, yeah, it's starting to look top 5-esque. Again, not the best example of it, but I really got to love the mentality because that's the thing that separated it for me. I always looked at Pascal as a guy that can get you a bucket, But if he's facing a great team that's been physical with him, like he starts to kind of back down from the moment a little bit. And credit him, with experience and with failure, he's grown tremendously. So yes, I definitely think so. And I also want to backtrack quickly, not to go, back onto the Precious hype train right away. But when we talk about that
Keep
trade,
it rolling.
well, we keep pushing the propaganda, but this is an interesting observation about that trade. I think just looking at Precious coming back for Kyle Lowry is a W alone. But I really got to give extra kudos to Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster, because they also got Goran Dragic. I know it didn't work out, but what an acceptable kind of trade for a sign and trade deal on a guy that, wanted to go and win now with Miami. You kind of had no leverage to get two players back like that. And to be honest, at this point in Lowry's career, like Goran Dragic isn't him, but that's a slight downgrade and a player that you can invest future in. This front office is amazing, man. And we're pushing the propaganda all night.
All night long. But, Goran Dragic ended up turning into chatty Thaddeus Young, who feels like the Raptors are just kind of resting at this point in the season, letting the other guys work out the kinks and stuff. We got Kem Birch getting some run. Boucher is obviously back in the lineup, but I'm surprised Thaddeus Young hasn't been getting any run whatsoever. But, he's a solid vet to have around regardless if he's playing or not. He can be insurance. I'm sure he's not too worried about minutes at this point in his career. Just wants to be in a winning organization. The Raptors, they've had a ridiculously brutal schedule starting off this year. They will continue to have one as games go along. But 2-2, I'm pretty happy with that performance there. But let's stick with the positives of players, because you did have one guy coming back in the lineup tonight, Chris Boucher, in only 12 minutes of action. 10 points, 2 rebounds. 3-point shot looked pretty on fire for Mr. Chris Boucher coming out there at the start of this one. Unfortunately, picked up about 4 fouls in the matter of about 2 minutes, it felt like, and then was dealing with foul trouble the whole night. Only 12 minutes in this one, but what did you see from Chris Boucher? Maybe for the best as he's coming back from injury, but the forced minutes restriction, because I'm sure Nick Nurse would have played him 40-odd minutes if he had the chance to. But what did you feel about Chris Boucher in this one, in his first game of the season?
Hey, it was short, but it was sweet. So I was very happy with Chris. I mean, it's got to be difficult to be, a 6-man rim protector coming in for your first game of the season against a Miami Heat team that's always physical, always down to challenge you. And Chris Boucher is not going to let anything easy fly. So I think it was a recipe for him to pick up a lot of fouls. Definitely not making excuses, because this will not fly down the stretch. But I mean, his shot looked dialed in. That's the one thing I love about Chris Boucher, is he's going to shoot it with conviction no matter what. And I brought that up, and I believe in the Nets post game, where I was like, hey, this was a night where you needed a little bit of extra rim protection to deal with Claxton. You needed someone that actually wanted to shoot the ball with conviction. And I mean, you see the kind of impact he has when he comes in. Chris Boucher is one of those guys that I don't think would ever be likely to win a 6-man trophy, but definitely not unthinkable. Like, he's got that kind of upside and that impact on defense. Very exciting player. Super happy to have him back.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect like a 6-man of the year to happen, but if you told me, future us from 6 months from now came back, time machine, said Chris Boucher won 6-man of the year, you wouldn't be just baffled or anything by that. So, Chris Boucher, obviously an elite scorer off the bench, blocks shots, and a few of those fouls too were just felt like timing fouls. Obviously, Boucher, the entire Raptors squad, we're always reaching, we're always trying to poke balls loose, we're trying to come over on help side. A couple of them were just poorly timed reaches, which unfortunately those fouls add up, and then you get a couple real ones when you're guarding against Bam Adebayo. It's how it goes. First game back for Chris Boucher, not too bad, but I see people in the chat bringing up how we actually have a real center this season. In 18 minutes of action, Christian Koloko definitely had a learning experience tonight. I think that's what a lot of people have been putting it as. 2 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, got a bucket early, but 5 fouls himself. And while he's certainly not lost out there, most big men coming into the NBA on their help side rotations, they are just out of position. They don't know where to be. It looks like, Christian Koloko's running our schemes properly. He's effectively switching. He's in those lanes, just not ball or watching his man or watching the ball. He has that, eyes on a swivel, keep him moving, running these Raptor systems. We've seen guys try to run these wild Raptor schemes on defense and get absolutely just looking like they're chickens with their heads cut off. He doesn't look like that, but did get toyed around with by a bunch of veterans there on the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, throwing up weird pump fakes, some hesitations bouncing into him. And yes, they were soft fouls. Yes, we can complain about the referees and all that. But if you're a rookie big man coming in, you're going up against established NBA veterans. And even if it's a little bit of contact, you're getting called on that every single time. So it's a nice experience for him. Get the start. Come in against a team where you just got thrown out of, be a bit motivated and all that, and come in and not be horrible, right? Get a few bumps, get a few learning lessons. Seems to be improving on that end day by day as well. I'm happy with what I saw from Christian Koloko, even if it was a little bit of a meme. We have Marcel in the chat coming in saying they suspended Caleb Martin for his own good. That's right. If Caleb Martin was in this one, Christian Koloko would have been ready to dunk on this man, swat some shots away. But you feeling the same way about Koloko? Because I've seen a few people down on him in the past couple performances.
Oh man, no reason to be too far down on him. Like, he's going to have learning experiences, and of course fans are going to be quick to jump to conclusions, but you know, if there's anyone to place some faith in, it's this management, and they clearly see something in him. Getting a start tonight, getting a bunch of minutes against great Eastern Conference opponents. Clearly, they're in a rush to develop this kid because he solves a lot of issues positionally for the team. You know, obviously, growing experiences are going to come with that, and we got to see some of those tonight. He's going to be racking up a ton of fouls, but I love the willingness by him. He's not showing a lot of fear, and he is going to the right places at the right times. He can clearly play a system, and if you're doing that for Nick Nurse, you will get minutes. So there's just so many reasons I like this prospect, but the positional fit, the effort, the size, everything is really going to come together. And I can't wait to see him face a team where, you know, it's not a quality opponent and we get to run out to a lead.
Yeah.
I think that's when we're going to see a crazy performance from him. Just wait. The coming out party is on its way.
Yeah, without a doubt. What's up, Dapinder? Saying sup in the chat. But, you know, there's a guy that had a clutch performance in this one as well. It was a bit up and down all game, but Gary Trent Jr., 7 of 19 from the field, 4 of 12 from the three-point line, 18 points, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. There were moments in this game where it felt like Gary missed a few of those shots, but having a scorer out there in Gary Trent Jr. that complements all of the big wings, the mobile dudes, the elite defenders, not to say Gary's not an elite defender. He's picking pockets left, right, and center, and he's on ball harassing people, but not one of those long boys that we have in the lineup, right? His shooting to just be able to run to those corners and be that threat to space out the floor for our Pascals, our Preciouses, our, in theory, OG Anunoby's driving those lanes. It's huge for us. And even though he wasn't, 4 of 12 is not bad from the three-point line. It felt like a lot of those shots were open, so they, they're on runs where they could have really just pushed our lead a little bit earlier on than the last fourth quarter. But I feel like 3 of those threes came down in the fourth quarter, honestly. So, down the fourth, it was all good, but especially in the first 3 quarters, a few shots were missed from Gary Trent Jr., but even when he's missing, you see the value of him out there on the court, and then especially in the fourth, you gotta guard him. You're not guarding him. He's running to those corners, and even when he's missing, I still feel confident every single 3 he puts up. It's money. His jump shot's so smooth. He's got that swag. He's got that confidence. I just love what Gary Trent Jr. brings to this team. People are also up and down on Gary himself. He just perfectly complements what the Raptors need at this point in their team.
You're 100% right. He can drive me nuts. I will be the first to admit that, and I'm sure everyone can relate. But no, he is exactly what we need because he doesn't hesitate when he shoots. He wants the ball, and he's definitely got a short memory as well. This whole Raptors team, to be fair, has actually done a great job of being next shot players. They don't really care. There's been some ugly looks that get tossed up, some really bad dry spells, but there's a confidence and maturity that's growing in this team, and it's come with time. It's come with, working through things, feeling failure, just getting older and experienced in the league. And Gary Trent Jr. is still a very young player. Like, what is he, 24? This guy has a lot of good years ahead of him. And and to what you said, he is definitely complementing what we're doing. Not exactly a long boy, but we need some spot up shooting. We need someone who's going to play hard defense and commit to our system. And he definitely checks those boxes. So we're on the same page about Gary. But someone that I don't know if we're on the same page about, and I saw Marcel ask, are we going to talk about OG? I'm not going to light him up too much, but I'm interested to hear your take right now, fresh.
Well, I was saving it for a little segment, but let's talk about it now. The segment named after him, the OGs. Not players of the day, it's going to the OG player of the day because it's no Golden Kazoo. Because he hit a clutch 3, he had a clutch dunk, and he was playing remarkable defense on Jimmy Butler when you switched onto those guards who can quickly light you up in Tyler Hero, Max Strus, Duncan Robinson, all those guys, and switch on a Bam who I know has been down this season, hasn't been that great, but that only works when you have a big body in front of him to keep him out of the lane and all that sort of stuff. He was amazing in all those aspects. But with the exception of the fourth, he only took 4 shots in total. I feel like 3 of those shots were in the fourth themselves. And I know I discussed on a recent video, his struggles with the isolation scoring. And he definitely wasn't watching that, but maybe he heard all of the talk on Twitter. There's people coming at him saying, we don't want OG driving those lanes and all that sort of stuff. I even said in that video, I don't want him to stop it just yet. Because if he can develop into one of those ISO scores paired alongside his 3-and-D capabilities, that's next level for the Toronto Raptors. We saw Precious Achiuwa, who, speaking of the Miami Heat, didn't take a single three, or I think he took a couple threes for the Heat there his rookie year. I don't know if he made one. Became, when he came to us, just a basic pick and roll diver compared to Bismack Biyombo and Ben Wallace in terms of the offensive end, to a guy shooting 40+% from the 3-point line, dribbling the basketball. Now he's making drives like LeBron-esque in the lane, right? If OG Anunoby can work out the kinks on the drives, I'd love to see it. But regardless, as a 3-and-D player, as a guy that is going to be at least a third or fourth option on this lineup, 4 shots is unacceptable. In the first 3 quarters, taking like 1 shot that entire game, I'd rather see him miss 4 more. I'd rather him go 1 for 5 just to be a threat out there on the offensive end rather than, because then the zones actually have to close out hard to OG Anunoby because they know he's a high percentage shooter. But when he's not looking confident, when he's looking extremely passive, the defense just plays away from him. They throw extra help onto Pascal Siakam. They throw extra help onto Fred VanVleet, who was forced to take a bunch more shots tonight, really because I feel like OG Anunoby was passing them up more often. And yes, I get it, as I just rambled on about. He's not the most efficient ISO scorer yet, but we need him taking shots, even if it's from behind the 3-point line to the most efficient. We need those ISO shots. We need all that right now, how our offensive system runs. What are your thoughts on this OG Anunoby situation?
Well, I'll start by giving him a lot of credit for always being a world-class defender.
Yep.
And that was, no exception tonight. He went out there, did a great job on Jimmy Butler, fought for rebounds. Like the effort, the knowledge, the strength, it's always there with OG Anunoby. But, this isn't a knock on him, but more a knock on the people that have continued to rush him and push the agenda that he's a primary ball handler. And also, there was some rumbling this offseason, of course, that OG Anunoby was discontent with his role and wanted to be moved out. And the supposed reason for that was because he wanted more of an offensive spotlight and more control with the ball. Well, if that's true, which I'm definitely not saying it is, but if there's even an ounce of truth to that, I hope he's already humbled himself, because he does not belong as a primary ball handler in the NBA, period. If he can figure out a way to take it off the dribble a little bit more as a third, fourth option, then we're absolutely going to be laughing, especially if he just continues to be this world-class defender, which I know he will be. But the handle, it's gotten better every year. Don't get me wrong, but it's been so incremental. It's been so gradual. And hey, maybe by the time he's like 29 years old, he truly actually will be a decent ball handler. But right now, it's not his strength. And of course, he is a good 3-point shooter, so people need to respect it. But at the same time, man, if you can't pump fake and then dribble into the paint and get a shot, then you're not going to be an effective scorer. He needs to round out his game offensively, and if he can do that, the Raps are a legit threat in the East. There just needs to be some more steps taken, but unfortunately with OG, the offensive steps have been so gradual, but hey, I'll at least recognize that they've always been positive. He trends in the right direction, even if it's not at the speed that we want.
Yeah. There were moments over the past 2 years where 4 or 5 game stretches, we see flashes of OG Anunoby's slashing ability. The ability to drive those lanes, protect that basketball, players bouncing off him, go into the lane on balance, not sort of flopping around the place, and finish on top of people. We have seen that. And there's been moments over his career, but then it's usually something external that occurs, whether it be a weird injury, a health and safety protocol, something weird ends up going on, and then he comes back from a long absence and looks extremely rusty. So I disagree in the sense that I think it could be possible that if we give him some time and bad luck doesn't occur with him coming in, if we just rep out a few more plays for him early in a season, sure, it might affect the win-loss column by a game or two, whatever happens. But if we work that out through OG Anunoby, because the potential has been shown to be there, it's remarkably inconsistent. Yes, it is incremental improvements. I definitely agree with that. But the eye test, the potential is there with OG Anunoby. And if he can get that, that takes this team to a whole nother level. So I'm not disagreeing with you by any means. But I think there's external factors factoring into that lack of growth because he just hasn't. Look at the start of last season when Pascal Siakam was out. OG Anunoby was 20 plus point per game scorer, hitting mid-range jump shots. Yes, the Raptors were losing. Yes, it wasn't absolutely perfect, but it was definitely a higher level of shot creation than we've ever seen from OG Anunoby. It only really got to work it out for like 2-3 weeks. Pascal came back into the system. OG got injured pretty quickly following that moment. So I think there's been signs, and if he can work that in, obviously not forcing anything, we're not going to take touches away from Pascal, Scotty Barnes, even a Gary Trent Jr. to give a bunch of reps there, but there needs to be more shots taken than 4 a game. So that's sort of my take on it. I think we're on the same page, but it depends on what Nick Nurse wants to do going forward. I don't mind, just like we saw last season with Precious, let him work out the kinks. If it doesn't get better, then just say, okay, it's all right, dude. You can chill in the corner and pop some threes, but give him a couple months. Just give his confidence a little bit of a juice. So that's a take. Do you agree, disagree emphatically with that, or?
No, I don't disagree. I think we are pretty much on the same page. I just more wanted to point out that, anyone who's still pushing the agenda of him holding the ball for any extended period of time, or if there are any ounce of truth to those rumors about him wanting more and therefore was potentially willing to leave Toronto, just absolute silly. I just hope everyone's a little bit humbled and a little bit more realistic with the best way to use this guy. But we definitely agree. More shots need to go up for him. Whether they're falling or not, he needs to be more of a threat. He's, everyone in the league knows that he's apparently an undercover walking 30 piece, the way some people describe him. He's got to start carrying himself like that, having that kind of shot selection and converting a bit more. One thing I will say though, if we had a superstar that joins the team, and someone in the chat, we were rumored to this guy in the offseason, to Donovan Mitchell. Someone just said he would fit this team like a glove. If you did have a Donovan Mitchell who just wants to shoot the hell out of the ball, then OG Anunoby is a 3-and-D guy. Okay, that's fine. But right now the Raptors can't have serious aspirations without him taking a little bit of an offensive leap.
Yeah, for sure. And Paul Blunt's coming in with the meme saying he should change his name to DG because there is no O. And Paul, at least get the dots in there. He changed his name. It's O.G. If you're going to be roasting OG, it got to be D.G. But I like the memes. Shout out Paul Blunt. Always coming in with the fire super chats. Legendary stuff. But before we swing into the proper segments, before we get everything properly, all the memes rocking. Once again, we have a little competition battle for minutes. And in the first half, we saw Delano Banton get a lot of run. The second half, we got Malachi Flynn. A little bit less run. 6 minutes for Flynn in the second half. 8 minutes for Delano Banton. A lot of Raptors fans have been calling for Flynn to just have a full game of opportunity to shake the rust off, get the mask a little bit more comfortable in his face in the first half so he can pop off in the second half. Obviously came in the fourth quarter of the last game against the Miami Heat, knocked down some threes. Delano Banton, while Tom N brings up a good point, hasn't been turning the ball over as much, but I'd argue that's because he hasn't been doing as much out there. He just catches the ball and kind of just stands there and passes it and doesn't take any risks or anything like that. So yes, the lack of turnovers are there, but he just seems like a complete non-factor, at least on the offensive end when he's out on the court. What are you feeling about this whole Delano Banton, Malachi Flynn situation? Fred VanVleet, again tonight, 39 minutes, 42 for Gary, 42 for Siakam. That's not sustainable. We saw it last year. We need someone to fill those minutes. How are you feeling about those two guys potentially getting run?
So neither is the perfect option. I'll begin with that. But I do think out of those two, it's got to be Malachi Flynn. And Delano Banton, I get it. The idea of him is so cool, right? Like this guy really can play in some senses 1-4. But if you isolate him at one position, he's not going to play that position truly or effectively. And it's becoming a big time issue because like you said, we need someone to be able to go in there and back up our guards more. And he's a point guard, self-proclaimed. It's just not working out. And he's not that young. He's already been in the league for a year. The Raptors have given him more leash than any team in the NBA would. And I will stand on that point because they really wanted to make it. They want to make it work for a few reasons. I'll honestly say, I think that part of it's from, the fact he's from the city. People love him. It's a good culture.
He's a fan favorite.
Of course. And that's justified. Another reason is obviously that we're trying to run positionless. So the idea of that skill set would help. But Malachi Flynn is so much more your traditional point guard. And I also don't get it, man. he came into the NBA, and yes, he had his issues, but that season down in Tampa, he was dropping 20 pieces most nights in that second half of the season when Fred VanVleet was out. He showed a lot. And then when you see Malachi Flynn in the G League, he was lighting it up this season, going off. Like, I don't know what Malachi Flynn needs to do to make Nick Nurse realize that, honestly, he's a better backup for Fred VanVleet. I know it's hard to put them on the court at the same time together because of size, but Malachi Flynn deserves way more leash, and no other team would give Delano Banton this much benefit of the doubt. I think it's time for a little bit more of a firm change.
Yeah, I think you at least have to give Malachi Flynn 3 to 4 games of being the backup point guard. Delano Banton has kind of shown what he is. He's not going to develop that mid-range jump shot. He's not going to develop that ability to break zones, which the Miami Heat went into tonight and went back on a run when Delano Banton's on the court. It was a common theme last season. Teams are just bad coaches. Not that, Eric Spoelstra is obviously one of the best coaches in the NBA, but last year, scrub coaches becoming, Delano's in, let's run a 2-3 zone, let's run a 3-2 zone, let's run a little trap. They ran a full court press. They're looking like a junior high basketball. You never see that in the NBA run unless a team's down by 30, right? Ran a full court press. They say, might be able to get a couple turnovers there on Banton, right? Like, he's not going to fix all those issues right away. God forbid, maybe say throw him in the G League, get his confidence up a little bit, just see what Malachi Flynn can do, because you said it, during that Tampa season, he looked like an elite backup point guard. Like, potential, right? He was facilitating. It was especially the way he worked that pick and roll with Khem Birch. I feel like we reference this every second vid that Malachi Flynn plays for the past 2 seasons, because he looks so good working that pick and roll with Khem Birch down. We were tanking at that point, but I digress. Just let him run with the guys and let him run as the point guard. Don't throw him out there with Fred VanVleet where he's getting abused on matchups. Let him guard smaller players. Let him, run the offense a little bit. Show what he can do to facilitate that basketball, knock down a couple threes. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, give Delano Banton those minutes. But the worst thing you can do, in my opinion, is give a guy 6 minutes and give the other guy 8 minutes. Let either of them run 15 minutes to get a rhythm going, and tell them before the game, hey, you're going to get 15 minutes tonight. Regardless of if you're trash, obviously if they're absolutely brutal, you take them out. But, assuming everything's fine relatively, let you play through some mistakes. Give them 15, 16 minutes so they have the confidence. They know they're going to come in. It might be Dwayne Casey, XS, no in-game adjustments and stuff. But you know what? Especially during the regular season, those guys had a lot of confidence. Corey Joseph knew he could come in off the bench and say, I'm going to miss a couple threes, but I can play hard defense. I don't have to force anything because I'm getting that run in that second half, right? I'm running through that rotation. Maybe Nick Nurse, I know he loves trying things out. He's a mastermind with putting pieces together and all that stuff, and that's why we love him. But just to get a player's confidence going, I think you just got to let him know you're getting this run, especially early in the season. We can take a couple losses here and there this year, I feel like. The East is going to be loaded, and I guess maybe that's a hot take, but if it means we don't have to play Fred VanVleet, we find an actual backup for this dude, in the long run, it will pay off. But that's we'll see what happens. And you can always switch it up after and just let him run from the start of the season. Josh?
I really do agree with that, though. I really do. I think that at some point, you just need to load up the minutes on one side in order to get something rolling. And that was a big knock I had on Coach Nurse last season, because he was giving Malachi occasional minutes, and everyone's like, well, Malachi didn't score in the 5 minutes he got. Yeah, because the 5 minutes was during blowout time with a bunch of other, borderline bubble players. Like, you're not going to see him in a backup point guard role, only giving him those minutes. It's just not a fair sample. So I agree completely. And one last thing I wanted to say about Flynn, when we drafted him and when I was watching him play in Tampa that season, I felt like we could end up with almost like a Peyton Pritchard type player who's a surprisingly great three-point shooter, surprisingly durable, can at least play defense in the system. I thought that was kind of the ceiling, and a realistic ceiling at that. Who knows if that's gone now, but I still think that he's got to get more minutes to at least see if it's there.
Yeah, for sure. And Tom M's coming in, backing up Delano Banton in the chat, and I agree with what he's saying. Banton pushes the pace. In theory, he can be a really good fast break player. And we've seen Delano also be a really good facilitator at times. Usually that led to increased turnovers, but when he's trying things out there. But at this point in the season, just watching him out there on the court, looks like he's just trying to do nothing. He's trying to not mess up so much that is maybe that's a confidence thing. Maybe it's I'm a little bit outclassed against these better teams. Who really knows? But give Flynn the opportunity. Maybe throw Delano. I don't think the G League season has started up, but let him get reps up in practice or something like that and say, okay, in 2 weeks, you're going to come in and get some run and all that sort of stuff. See how Flynn is rocking out with, and then see what occurs. But we just can't have a guy out there on the court that's not an OG and Anunoby level defender, just doing nothing on the offensive end for 20 minutes at a time. Just unsustainable for this team. But I am high on Delano Banton long term. If he grows in that game, the potential's there. We'll see what ends up occurring. But Josh, kind of been bashing at the OG topics, the deep bench guys. Let's swing it in some fun stuff. Tonight, the spicy play of the day. We got a lot of fun things to dive into. And Paul Blunt's coming in with the fire super chats as well, cutting us off from the spicy play, but with a good meme just to end off the Flynn topic, saying that Flynn, the rise of the Darth Ginger. Love that. Absolutely love that there. But Paul Blunt always coming in with legendary comments. But the Raptors came in with some legendary plays tonight. Already discussed Precious Achiuwa just absolutely bodying. Had one crazy finish over Bam. Had one moment where rarely do you see Jimmy Butler bounce off a player like a child, as I was sort of referencing earlier, because he's such a strong guy himself. Those were nice plays from Precious, but a couple plays down the stretch. Got to get the spicy Pele in this one. And also Marcel coming in with more Star Wars references saying, Precious, the rise of Darth Maul. Keep coming in with those Star Wars memes in the chat. I love it. But Josh, Pascal Siakam in this one. Missed a couple shots in the corner late in the game, and obviously late game execution was a big knock on Pascal Siakam when he was given the keys, especially in that Tampa year, for being the number one option, trying to close games and all that, and he just missed a lot of those shots. It became a reoccurring theme, and he missed a couple down the stretch. I'm sure a lot of Raptors fans had some flashbacks to that moment, but then without hesitation, from the same spot he missed a couple shots, hit a nice little fadeaway in the corner that was pure cash and was needed for the Raptors to get this win. Then Gary hit a nice three, a step back three with a hand in his face to really put the dagger in the Miami Heat spine at the end of this one. So that's a lot of positive stuff there. Do you have any other spicy Pele's of the day?
I'll save mine for the OGs.
Okay, sweet. We also have Jay's Digest coming in the chat saying Precious is a fantasy GOAT. Definitely tonight is a fantasy GOAT. And if you want to get some Jay's news, definitely check out Nick and Peter, the MLB GOATs for baseball. They got a fun video dropping tonight, so check that out. But not all plays can be the spicy Pele of the day, and some just make you say, oh, geez. And take it away, Josh, with those laser eyes popping.
Hey, well, it's ironic that I'm going to give the OGs to Spicy himself, but I said OGs when I saw that block happen, man. He got up there. Tyler Hero was going hard to the rack all night. Credit to him. Played an amazing game. He was a spark plug for the Heat. I think he's great. But anyways, moral of the story here is he tried the wrong dude, Pascal Siakam, coming out of nowhere and right at the apex of the ball, swats that thing away. He put 2 and 2 up on defensive stats, 2 blocks, 2 steals. I mean, just a complete effort on both ends. I know the offense wasn't pretty, but the Raptors collectively hang their hats on defense, and it always begins with the best player, and that's Pascal Siakam right now. No doubt, top 5 on both ends. Book it.
Yeah, without a doubt. So that's a huge positive for the Raptors there. Pascal looking like a top 5 player. Absolute beast on the defensive end. I was backing this guy's defense whole last season. Riker was coming on the pods roasting me for backing that. I'm sure you were too on the lives watch-alongs, the roast of the Spicy P player. But he's balling right now, the defensive end. I like you're giving him credit.
For sure, man. He deserves it. Like, it's so consistent, and it'll get him through those offensive woes, just like every player on this Raptors team is going to need to hang their hat on defense. That'll be a theme of this year, no doubt. It's been a theme of this team in, the post-2010 era. So credit to him, man. He's balling. Yeah,
for sure. But finally, the infamous is becoming infamous. The one, the only Paul Pierce Golden Kazoo Award of the night. And tonight, we got a couple. And thankfully, none are going to any Toronto Raptors players. Ken Birch came into this game, so people might be roasting his performance. I thought he hit a nice little floater, but shout out Ken getting on the court. But it's going to another big man on the Miami Heat. I already kind of roasted him early in this podcast, especially where he's on my fantasy team. But Bam Adebayo, 4 of 14 14 points, 10 rebounds, just an ugly looking game. Precious Achiuwa completely outclassed him in this performance tonight. And I also want to throw a little shade to the coaching battle. Now, Erik Spoelstra, they both have championships, him and Nick Nurse. Erik Spoelstra has the bigger resume. He's been coaching the team, coaching the NBA for way longer as a head coach, coached some superstars, coached some bottom feeder teams and brought them up. Erik Spoelstra is one of the greatest coaches of all time. But Nick Nurse is always getting disrespected in these rankings and all that sort of stuff. And they had a nice little coaching battle tonight. Now, Spoelstra did a lot of nice adjustments mid-game, move into some zones, move into some press actions that really stopped the Raptors' offensive plays on a lot of times. But tonight, had a big mistake in not running the Nick Nurse 45 minutes for your top guys because Jimmy Butler was subbed out for it felt like the full fourth quarter. And, he went up to the table about the 6-minute mark, but didn't get into the game till like the last 3 minutes. Nick Nurse, if he wanted Fred back into the game, if he wanted Pascal back into the game, he'd be yelling at Malachi Flynn, Delano Banton, foul that man, just get our guys, throw the ball out of bounds, find a way to get our top guys back in. But I don't know. Precious outclass and Bam makes my heart warm, and then Nick Nurse, at least on that front, playing our top guys more. Probably not the biggest of most insightful coaching decision. I feel like a lot of people play their top guys more, but getting the best of Erik Spoelstra on this one.
No, that's a great observation, actually. Come to think of it, Jimmy Butler, Mr. Fourth Quarter, a lot of people hold him as, and he didn't get into the game. And you're so right that if that was Coach Nurse, he'd be yelling at one of his other players to commit a foul so we can make the change.
Or burn a timeout, something. Gotta get your star in the game.
No, that is a great award with the kazoo there. Definitely, man. Great, honestly. That is put perfectly. I think that was a massive key to this game, and kudos to Nick Nurse, who really made the right adjustments. And Erik Spoelstra couldn't hang tonight, couldn't get his guy in at the right time.
Yeah, and Erik Spoelstra is known for using his timeouts to stop runs, but the Raptors were on a run. He didn't have his best player in the game. Kind of getting worked by Pascal and these guys driving those lanes. I don't know. Kind of some silly stuff there from Erik Spoelstra. Maybe he's resting. Maybe he's playing the long-term game. But Raptors needed this win. And the Heat needed this win too. They're currently 1-3. It's tough to go a couple games, 2-3 games below 500 early in the year. You want to stay at that level and then obviously get your stride as the end of the season. But you don't want to fall too far behind the top of the pack. But Josh, we have 435 people in here. Let's get a little like spike going, and let's get that final alarm. We want to hear what the people have to say about this game. Woo, 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 woo. Beep, 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 beep. Woo, 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 woo. Beep, 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 beep. That's right. The final alarm has sounded. We want to hear what you guys have to say about this game. See what people are believing in this one. Ryan's out here saying Spo didn't want to run Jimmy Butler into the ground. Lol. Run our guys to the ground and pray Otto Porter Jr. returns. But we all know that Otto Porter Jr. is going to return, and then Fred's still going to be playing 45 minutes, and it's going to be tough. 39 minutes for... Do you think this is a concern that needs to be addressed immediately, Josh, with Pascal playing 42, Gary playing 42, 39 for Fred VanVleet? Scotty Barnes already went down with injury. Nurse said following the last game that... Gary Trent Jr. is banged up at this point. Is this a concern that needs to be fixed at this point?
No, I'm not too worried about it. I like the fact that he's just putting a higher emphasis on successful basketball, because at the end of the day, you have these assets for a reason, and if you're not confident with your bench, and to be honest, I don't know who on the bench, okay, Malachi Flynn maybe, but there's no real players on the bench where I'm like, hey, even if he's not the best option, we need him in there to develop. There's very, very few guys that I feel that way about. So to put in some sort of lackluster replacement and maybe cost us a big Eastern Conference game, I don't see it as worth it. I like Coach Nurse's commitment to winning here, and it definitely paid off versus Spoelstra, who kind of dragged his feet getting his guys in there, and ultimately we get rewarded with the W. So no, I'm not too worried about it. I mean, these guys have shown that they can play a long season like that, and we do have some guys that are still injured. And for the record, I'm not saying that you necessarily said this, but I don't think that Scotty Barnes' injury had really much to do with overusage. It was just a weird landing. So I'm not going to read too much into that either. I think that once everyone's healthy, which inevitably, knock on wood, I think they will be, everything will fix itself. I'm just happy that we're prioritizing winning basketball right now.
Yeah, without a doubt. I agree on that point. But Connor's asked about the live watch longs, organizing all that stuff, getting that stuff rocking. Haroon saying Achiuwa is better than Bam. Couldn't agree more, Haroon. No, that's just facts. But OG, low-key, might have been our most important player to us tonight, Tom M. And yes, as much as people bag on him in the offensive end, get it completely, but defensively, and this is why you gotta be hesitant. Obviously, for a superstar, you'll trade OG Anunoby, but we can't be throwing this guy out willy-nilly to random teams, because defensively, even though we're a great squad defensively in general, even when OG plays or not, OG is a core piece, a core tenet to that defense that we want to run. So it's tough to just throw him out and say, oh, Scotty plays his position, this, that. Yeah, but, those 3-and-D wings, they're hard to come by, especially when you got the big D, what do we call him? D.G. Anunoby rather than O.G. But, that's what's happening there. But yeah, the propaganda is coming out. The chats are going on. Blue Week is saying, I'm sure the minutes will go down later on the season. And that's true, because the Raptors do have a really tough schedule. Do you know who our next matchup is, Josh? It's the Sixers?
No, let me check right now, though.
Yeah, I believe people were saying the Sixers in the chat, but I believe our first 8 to 10 games are just against proper playoff teams from last season, or at least, well, the Cavs, I'm considering a playoff team from last season. They were injured prior to them falling out of the race, but once we get through all these W's, then that's what's happening. Is it the Sixers, Josh?
Yeah, we got the Sixers back-to-back, and then we got the Hawks to finish the month. So yeah, you got a bunch of good Eastern Conference opponents, and the 76ers just got their first win tonight. Man, coming into the season, I thought the Sixers were going to be a regular season powerhouse. Again, like whether or not that's going to translate to the playoffs, I doubt it. Doc Rivers, choke artist. James Harden, choke artist. Joel Embiid, just debatable player in general, even though he's great. I didn't have much stock in them for the playoffs, but for the regular season, I thought this team could be like 55 to 60 wins with how good they are. But again, the East is so much better, and it's going to be rough on them. So who knows what happens, but these are not going to be easy games coming up. The Raptors are going to need to battle their way, but I like it. Get it out of the way at the beginning, and then kind of reap the rewards later and get rolling at the right time. Yeah.
Well, Joel Embiid's dealing with an injury now. Their bench pieces haven't been picked up. We talked about this earlier on Courtside Digest, Marcel and I, but man, PJ Tucker, DeAnthony Melton. Melton had a little bit of a better game there tonight, and Montrezl Harrell just haven't brought anything. They're big acquisitions to sort of supplement that core group of Harden, Maxey, and Embiid, obviously, and Tobias Harris. They haven't been effective. So, as you said, the Eastern Conference is absolutely elite this season. Going to be difficult for them to get out of this hole, but people talking like Embiid's a tank. Ray's in the chat saying, I refuse to give up on OG because that man is a tank himself. And OG just be making teams feel like they should tank, because when he's working.
You know what's a good point about OG though is, I mean, he takes pressure off the team in general, because I keep saying when you can play solid defense, you can afford to have offensive woes, and that's just not an OG problem. Like, that's a whole Raptors team problem. So if you take him out of the equation and put a better shooter in, okay, maybe that guy will end up with like 7 more points on the occasional night. But overall, he's going to make your whole entire offense need to be more accountable, which might not be the best thing for the team right now. So I'm not trying to undervalue OG. I just want him to be as great as everyone's thinking he is. And, I think it's there too. It's just been so gradual, like you and I were saying earlier.
Yeah, for sure. We got a lot of channel members in the chat here right now. Paul Blunt with that icy leaf on by the side. Got a couple other golden icy leaves from Magnetic Knowledge saying, love all y'all. Miss these chats. Well, we're back, baby. The season's back up and running. We got Tristan in the chat saying can't wait to get Otto. Yeah, Otto is going to be key. How are you feeling about an Otto insertion into this lineup? We've seen this now for 4 games. The bench, up and down, having a steady presence that plays defense, shoots threes. Similar to OG Anunoby, probably to a lesser extent. Probably more consistent from behind the arc and stuff, but different players. But how are you feeling about inserting him into this lineup?
I feel great. It's not like exactly like it's so close to the perfect fit, but it's going to help a ton. It's just not like, it's not like a Desmond Bane. I hate to bring it up. I keep losing sleep over that, thinking that we could have had him. But again, let's scrap that whole idea and just realize that we do have a great shooter coming back who, like you said, plays really good defense and has recent championship DNA. Otto Porter, I think at one point, not so long ago, averaged 17 points in the league. It's been health issues, and I've mentioned this earlier as well, that We got a great medical staff, like a staff that helped Kawhi Leonard get back,
Yep.
a staff that's kept, countless stars healthy while playing huge minutes. I think that he's really going to be super effective in Toronto, and you got to respect the fact that he came here as a free agent. I'm excited about this for a number of reasons, and he's going to fit in perfectly.
Yeah. Defensively, just having him coming off the bench too. It's going to be nice to see another switchable defender come in. I know we're used to it probably at this point, but that switch and then knock down threes at an extremely high clip as well, hopefully reliably. The Raptors, it seems to have faded in recent seasons, but always had a curse when we bring in 3-and-D guys. They'd just suddenly lose their three-point shot. So hopefully that doesn't come back with Otto Porter Jr. But definitely the perfect sort of guy I think the Raptors need at this point. That will be a steady presence and make sure we don't go through these horrible lulls when we sub in that bench unit. So be a zone buster and all that sort of stuff. Predator Kingdom saying Otto will be like when we got Danny Green in 2018, 2019. And Kawhi's been missing action since leaving Toronto. Bringing up a couple guys from the championship team. For as not great as Danny Green was in the playoffs, he was amazing for us that regular season. Shot 40+% from the three-point line, played elite defense, and I think that's a solid comparison in terms of what Otto Porter Jr. will be able to bring to the squad.
Man, I actually love that comparison. I think that's pretty spot on. And to talk about Danny Green on the championship run, yes, like he didn't have a consistently great playoffs. But still, he had these games where he kind of put the Raptors ahead early and helped them keep that lead. So even though maybe he would miss 2 games where he was lackluster, he would have 1 game where he was a genuine reason that we won. And the regular season, he was lights out. So I think Otto Porter is actually a very, very fair comparison for that Danny Green shout out there. I like that take.
Yeah, no, for sure. Matthew Longo saying Kawhi gave away a championship to play in LA. That is facts, Matthew. There's no other way to put it. Oliver saying, I want our team to give Embiid hell on Wednesday. Throwing in the Embiid crying face. Channel members, throw in those crying Embiid emojis. Want to see those go off right now because we want to get the best of Joel Embiid down there in Philadelphia. Get some revenge for that playoff series where he hit that shot. We should have won that series. If we were healthy, we'd be getting that out. But no, we also got a weird unknown voice coming in. Feels like a bot, but we'll see what... might have to get some... bot police out on that one. But Danny Green really spaced out the floor like Otto Porter can. Definitely agree with that front. Felix saying Malachi is too short. I believe Color Rookie is saying, why is Nick not playing Thaddeus Young? Are you sad that he's not getting out there on the court getting some more minutes? He could take some pressure off. We talk about Fred VanVleet's minutes so much. Pascal played 42 in this one as well. Thaddeus Young is someone I trust to be out there on the court for us.
Yeah, I do too. It's weird. Like, I'm not too upset about it. I think that if we were in the playoffs and I was seeing Delano Banton get minutes and not Thaddeus Young, I would start to question things. But this early in the regular season, it's not that much of a concern to me. Even when he's not on the court, I love Thad Young. I think that he's like a perfect guy for this young team. And he already embodied the things that this team's doing. So he's a great, coach for this team in some regards too. I'm not too worried yet. I would like to see an increase in minutes for him at some point, but so long as we're winning, we're competitive, and we're playing a nice brand of basketball, I'm okay with the decisions being made. The only thing I would say is, if we were in the playoffs and Delano Banton was touching the court, but, Thaddeus Young wasn't, that would be a little peculiar to me. But right now, I'm chill.
Yeah, for sure. If he doesn't play the entire season, I'll be a little bit confused, but using him at the right times and stuff. We don't need to rush Thaddeus Young into things. But we got a couple things being brought up. Sperm Whale is bringing up how bad how our bench is extremely weak. Sperm Whale's back in the chat. Appreciate legends coming returning. But Remy's saying Doughton Jr. should be the backup PG. Marcel is saying Doughton as well. I think we give Flynn the run first. Give him the opportunity. Give him a proper 5-game span where he's getting 12 to 15 minutes. Know when he's going to get in there. And if he's struggling the first 2 or 3, then experiment somewhere else. But if it doesn't work out with Flynn, if it doesn't work out with Delano Banton the next month, if we don't give Jeff Doughton an opportunity, I will be mad. Because that dude looks elite as a backup, like as a deep, like as an insurance, the insurance pylon for Aaron Baines. As an insurance point guard, right, Jeff Doughton looks elite for that role for this team. But I think he has legitimate potential to be a backup point guard in this league this season.
That is a hot take.
Did you see this man in preseason? He was elite with those floaters, those middies. I don't think it's that hot.
Man, I think it's worth trying. Like I said, I got nothing against trying it. I'm definitely not as bullish on it, but like, you know what? Like, we got to find some sort of solution in the backup guards. So, like, I think he's earned his right to get some regular season minutes here. I'm with you, but to say he's ready to do it right now, or maybe even ever, I don't know, dude. That's a hot take, but I respect it, and I definitely hope it comes to fruition.
The floaters, the defense, he's long. He's a long boy point guard. He fits everything that we need. Let's bring him in. But we have a little super sticker coming in from Dapinder Dylan. It's like a salt shaker. Salt getting thrown into Joel Embiid this coming week. So that's we love to see that. But Josh, talked a lot about this game. Got a lot of stuff happening in this one. We got some fun games coming up. I want to make sure, channel members, if you're here, definitely be ready to throw those Embiid crying emojis in for that the next couple Sixers games. I want to see you guys early in the chats just spamming that, because Sixers fans love to jump in those, and we want to see their tears, their shedding salt tears, as we end up crushing the Sixers in the next couple games. But you guys are the best for making this far. Check out Instagram, Twitter, all that Instagram, TikTok, all that cool stuff. Also, the graphic is incoming. It's in the works. Bueno Kitty's in the GOAT tier channel membership. Got to get all that updated. I'm giving myself like a week buffer to always update the base bar with our channel members and the end graphic for the GOAT tiers. But shout out Bueno Kitty. Didn't see you in the chat here today, but got to get the shout outs to the GOAT tier channel members and just everyone that's been in the chat, everyone that's been watching these games. We appreciate you guys as always. Josh, do you have any closing thoughts on this W for the Toronto Raptors? This Raptors started the season. Anything in particular?
Feel good win. If you can beat the Heat at home, that's amazing. That's going to be something that pays dividends later this season when space gets tight. Great win. Otherwise, I just want to say shout out to all my people in the chat that were following along with my live streams last season. I see a lot of people popping out, referencing times from the live stream. Like I can see Ray talking about, when Scotty went down because of Embiid, I was losing my mind. Some people went on the emotional roller coaster with me. So shout out to those people. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm just excited for this year.
For sure. We got a couple legends coming here deep into this podcast. Genfro, the man, the myth, the legend, coming in from Montreal. Got the Habs Digest, letting him know. I haven't seen him in the chat recently, so I gotta shout out all the channels. The Habs, got the Leafs, got the Jays, got Courtside, got F1, all that popping, so check all that stuff out. But enough of us rambling. We got some fun season ahead of us. You guys are the best. We're signing out. Cheers.
Peace.